show. I am Michael Pinter, where I teach you how to start flipping or wholesaling houses, or if you're already doing it, how to grow your business. So I don't say this often, but I got a terrible question today, and I'm sort of going to change it into something that actually makes sense. But the question was, if a seller asked for $600,000, what would you offer the seller instead? Now let me explain all the reasons why that's a terrible question. Number one is, how the hell do I know what to offer the seller instead? That house may be worth $100,000. That house may be worth $6 million. I really have no idea. So questions like that are terrible. But what I'm going to say is, how do you counter a seller's offer? Now, here's the story. The seller technically doesn't make an offer, okay? Actually, the seller technically does make an offer. They offer something for sale. And technically, every time you try and buy a house, that is your bid to buy. I know that from the days when I was on a trading desk on Wall Street. But what people say is that the buyer makes an offer to buy. Now, what this should have said is the seller asked for $600,000. What would you offer the seller instead? Now, the issue is that there's completely inadequate information here to answer that question, right? It depends on what it's worth. It depends on how much work is needed. But in general, what happens is the seller asks for a certain price. Now, if the seller is unrealistic in that expectation, right? So let's say the seller's asking for $600,000, but the house is worth $300,000, full retail in good shape. I may not even go on the appointment in that case, right? I may just say, listen, well, actually, truth is, it depends, right? I've had situations where people were asking ridiculously unreasonable, but I knew that they could not sell the property retail anyway, or that they were going to try and sell it retail and that the price was way too high anyway. So if that's the case, I may still go on the appointment and then I may still make an offer. But my offer to buy this property is completely irrelevant from what the person's asking. I don't care what they're asking. What they're asking may, if I can find that out before I go on the appointment, may help me determine whether to go on the appointment at all. Right? If a person's asking for much more than the house is worth, I may just say, listen, we're not going to be anywhere close on a price. I'm definitely going to push back, right? I might say the 3 cents. Or I might say, listen, I'm an investor. I have to buy properties at a discount to make a profit. It sounds like we're not a good fit. That may be another thing I do. But the seller's asking price should never, ever affect how much you offer. Ever. Sellers will lie to you more times than they won't. And also sellers have unrealistic expectations that make it impossible for you to buy properties. I mean, if I paid what a seller wanted every time, I'd be out of business very quickly, right? In general, your offer to buy a property has to be what you can make money at, or even less than what you can make money at. So a very common scenario is that a seller will come and they'll say, I want this price. And they'll want that price because that's what houses are going for in the area. So seller asks for $600,000 because houses in very good shape are going for $600,000. But then you go there and the house is a disaster, right? It needs $100,000 in work to get it anywhere near that $600,000 number. Guess what? You can't pay $500,000 for that house. What you really have to be, if you want to wholesale the house, let's take this scenario, right? $600,000 ARV, $100,000 repair estimate. You got to pay about 70% of $600,000. Was that 180,000? That's 420 minus 100. So you got to pay three. Is that right? 180 is 420 minus 100. You got to pay around 320, 350 to make any money on that property. Seller asks you for 600. You got to still make an offer. Make an offer at 350. Obviously, seller thinks he's getting 600. That's going to be probably a very quick process. Now, there is a certain tact involved in how you present the seller an offer. And I've gone through that many times, but I'll go through it again. So let's take this exact scenario, which has happened many times. Seller says, I think my house is worth 600,000. I go there, I can't pay more than 350 in my head. I call the seller up, or I tell the seller in person, listen, I have a number for you. But to be honest, I think you're going to hate it. And I think you're going to hate me. And I don't even know if I should give it to you. At which point the seller will say something along the lines of, just tell me. And I'll say, I don't want to insult you. I don't want to upset you. I know what you're looking for. I'm not anywhere near that. Now, what am I doing with that? I'm doing two things. First of all, I'm doing three things. First of all, I'm being honest, right? I don't want this guy screaming at me. And in the old days where I used to just drop the bomb on them, I used to get screamed at. You wasted my time. I told you what I wanted. So I'm being honest. I don't want to give him the number. Second thing I'm doing is I am I am anchoring them at hopefully a much lower price point than what I'm actually giving them. They may think I'm going to offer them $100,000 and I'm going to offer them $350,000. So that's an anchor. You're anchoring their brain to the worst case scenario. And the third thing I'm doing is I am making them beg me for the offer at least twice, sometimes 3 times. Now, when that happens, even if I'm not saying they'll take my offer, but they will almost never. No, I'll say they'll never yell at me like, "Why'd you give me that offer? It sucks," because they just begged me for it twice. So it becomes a much more pleasant, non-confrontational experience when I present the offer that way. And the truth is, it's honest. It's really honesty, right? I don't want the guy to yell at me. So that's how you present the offer. The offer you present to a seller should never have anything to do with their asking price. Now, I try to get asking price as often as I can, or a price expectation as often as I can, before I go on the appointment. Now, this is because this will help me. It will help me determine whether it's worth going on, and help me determine if, when I get there and I see it, if their number is reasonable or not. But in truth, sometimes knowing their number actually screws with my head, right? Let's take the example I just gave. I have to offer $350 to make money. What if the seller said he wanted $400? And the ARV is $600. At that point, I might skew my offer a little higher, right? I may not offer $350. I might say $360, $370, because I know I'm going to get closer to what he wants. And the truth is, I shouldn't do that, because what he wants should have no bearing on what I offer. Unfortunately, it does sometimes, but that's the way my brain works sometimes. But without a doubt, this was the worst question I've ever gotten, because it just is so completely devoid of enough information for anybody to answer it. Telling me that the seller wants X and what should you offer is absurd. But the way you don't really counter, right? You make your offer based on a price that you can make money, and what the seller wants is as close to being irrelevant as it can be. And you need to understand that. And a lot of people can't do it. And what a lot of new investors do is they go on an appointment. The seller says they want X. The new investor realizes quickly they can't pay anywhere near X, and they never make an offer. And they just say, you know what, this guy wants too much. I'm not going to waste my time. What they're doing is a couple of things. First of all, they're taking the real coward's way out, right? They don't want to have a confrontational discussion with the guy about how much they can pay. But what they're doing is they're giving themselves no shot at ever buying that house. Now, you may say, objectively, well, if the guy wants $600 and you can only pay $350, no one has a shot to buy that house. But let's think about this. If every investor is going to come there and offer them around $350, or if no other investor is going to come and his circumstances or motivation changes dramatically in the next 6 months to a year, right? Sometimes a guy says he wants $600, and then he calls a realtor, and the realtor tells him, you can get $400 for it because it's in shitty condition. And then he starts thinking that your $350 looks a lot better now because he doesn't have to pay commission on it because you're going to close, right? There are advantages to selling to an investor, right? The certainty, the control, my price isn't going to change. He might put it out for $400. Some guy says, I'll take it for $400. And then he brings an inspector there and says, I want a $40,000 adjustment because the guy says your electrical sucks. So that happens, right? Also happens that the guy didn't really need to move, but suddenly he does need to move. I just got a call from someone who I made an offer on 3 years ago. And she called my lead manager today and said she wants to speak to me tomorrow. That's good, right? I don't know if I'm going to buy the house, but that's good. So circumstances change, motivation changes, motivation increases. And if you sent an offer, and you should be sending things in writing, you may be the only person who sent an offer. So you may send a $350 offer for a seller who wants $600, and that may be the only offer that guy gets. And in a year, if he's more desperate, that may be the offer he takes. But if you take the coward's way out and say, well, it's not going to work out, I don't want to send this guy an offer because I'm so much lower than he wants, you're probably not going to buy a lot of houses that way. It's much more likely that you're going to make an offer in the situation I just gave you than the situation where the seller is going to say, I want $350 and you can give $350. That's unlikely. So I have to change the name of this because I think the topic I gave was shitty. But it's not seller's offer. It's really how do you make an offer when a seller wants too much. That's better. Okay, so I hope this was helpful. If you're interested in all the ways I can help you, go to howtoflipnewyork.com or learntoflipandwholesale.com. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're watching on any media channel, please click the thumbs up. A lot more people watching my videos lately, so thank you for all your likes. I post 5 times a week. I almost never have any idea what the hell I'm going to talk about, so I look at your questions, so keep the questions coming. The questions give me food for thought for future, and also in general, the whole purpose of this channel is to answer your questions, so keep the questions coming. This was a bad question, but if you want to give a good question, give me a little more information. So SB, you can respond to my response and just give me more information, and I'll be happy to answer you. So you can ask any question. It does not have to be about the video you're watching. And if it's a simple answer, I'll just reply with an answer. If it's something I've covered recently, I'll send you a link to a video. And if it's something I haven't covered in a while or never covered, I will do a brand new video on it. So thank you very, very much for watching.